Hey guys, today I want to talk about the ethno state. There is no place on this world that's perfect. There is no place you can find where everything will be great. There's no utopia. Nowhere on the earth you'll find one. There's nothing you can do to make a utopia. Anyone trying to sell you a utopia is probably selling you the opposite. We can look at this through history. Anywhere that they say they're going to make a government be a utopia, grand place for everyone, it always fails. What typically happens in a government is you do one thing and it causes something else to break. You fix one problem and it springs another leak. And they alt-right say that if they just make this ethno-state with all white people, then that'll fix all the problems. It'll make running the government so much easier because they're all white. Well, just like in everything else, it'll just spring another leak. Instead of having the problem that they're hugely racial, they'll spring up and then say, oh, well, you don't have this then. You don't have this little smudge. And I've talked about this quite a few times, but what'll happen is it not necessarily a purity spiral in the top. It won't happen with the people who lead the government. It will happen with the populace, mostly. Because what'll happen is the average person will get in their head that I'm this way because I'm this much more white than him, or so on and so forth. Even if the upper echelons of the government don't believe that way or pass laws like that, eventually the populace will begin to think like that. And no one's stopping them from making this government. They can go anywhere out in the wilderness and just pop one little place up and just say, alright, well, this is our white ethno city. Only come here if you're white. We won't let you in if you're not. And even if they did that, it would run, but it wouldn't be better than anywhere else. And the reason they want America, the reason they want to take over their home countries and take over the entire country and do it on a mass scale is because they know that there's a lot of power in it. You see, if you take over the whole government, you gain all that power. You can run off the old government for a little while. And yeah, you can run on a failing system for a while until some other country decides, I want that land, I'm going to enslave their people. And that's what would happen with the ethno state, most likely. If it's not propped up by anything else, it'll run all right, it'll run decent. It won't run well, because most of the people won't have any freedom in their lives. And I say that because of their ideology and the way they think. They are actually arguing for a cultural change. They say that there's a culture of white people. They go off history, most of them, and they look back and see all the things that white people did. They had great societies in the past, which is generally true. A lot of white countries did pretty well in the later periods. You can look at the British Empire and the American Empire as examples of such things, but what they won't do is they won't point to the failed nations there. And really you could say that Europe and America is successful because of its location. Another reason why they want America is because, well, it'd be really hard for Mexico or Canada to take over all of America anyways. But back to the cultural change. They want this cultural change back to the culture of white people. And they're failing to see that culture changes. It doesn't stay the same. If you look at any society, any race of people, over time it always changes. It never stays the same. It's always changing, because if you look at Africa now and Africa 1,000 years ago, completely different. Anywhere you look, except in maybe some tribe no one's ever found, but they're still probably different from 1,000 years ago. Even in the most untouched places where there are just small groups of people, they change over time because their ideas change. I mean, if we try to run a government like governments were run 300 years ago, they would fail. Why? Because there'd just be some king, and eventually you get a bad king that can't do anything. He may be patriotic, but he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. So they look at the history and the past of these cultures of white people and say, look at all these successful cultures of white people. Only white people have achieved these cultures, therefore we can only get the ethno state and there'll be this culture. There's no telling they're going to be that specific way. Why? Because if you get a white person from California and a white person from Florida, totally different. Completely different. 99% of cases. Totally different culture. Completely different. So this idea that you're just going to get white people and they're going to act a certain way is just wrong in any sense of the word. Yeah, they'll be white, and you get black people that act white. What are they? Oh, well, they're not white, but they're acting white. And I don't think they will ever get power through a voting system. And I think they know that. I think they plan on overthrowing the government. That would probably be their only way of doing it. Even if 90% of the alt-right isn't that way, 10% still is. The radicalized people. Just like you could say with Muslims. Not all of them go and blow up people. But there's a large chunk that do, and they create the problem. So, I see the problem not now, but in a few years in the future, as more people move away from the left into the right, because that's the social change that's happening right now. There we go again, a social change that's happening. Culture's changing right now. They're going away from the left to the right. Eventually it'll probably go back from the right to the left again. There's a swing in these kinds of things, but in a few years, whenever there are more extremists than there are today, that's what I'm afraid of, because it is a growing movement. So we have to stop it before it starts. We have to shun them away and show them their ass and show them that they're idiots. I know I've been stopping a lot during this video, but I want to make it clear what I'm saying. So that even if you get your white ethno state, and even if it works for a while, your culture will change. It won't run as smoothly as you think it does. There have been plenty of people who sat there and said, we're going to make this government and run it the best way possible. Well, let's take socialism for an example. Anytime you run it, a big old dictator comes through and says, well, we're going to kill millions of people. Why? Because I said so. And I'm the top of the government. And I hold all the power. Anywhere you try to plan things out and you make it unadjustable to change, it'll always fail in such a system. Which is why the democratic American system works so well. And I know you'll probably say, well, the ethno state can be democratic. It won't. It won't be. Because if you look at the way that they will gain power, they won't gain power with through democracy. They're going to have to gain power through force. And not only that, is if they are in a country and they're not able to get rid of all the other people, then why would you let them vote? Why would you give them the power to vote and affect your system? You see it in America where Democrats usually want a lot more immigrants to come into a country because they vote left. Because the left gives them free stuff. So, why wouldn't they want more people to come in? It secures their base. It makes sure that they will get voted in office. I've rambled on a lot in this video. I don't think I've said anything wrong. And if I was to sum it all up, it'd be your white ethno state will never work.